Hello there, this is Richie from the Metal Cell podcast. I'm delighted to welcome Jude from Acid Age. How the hell are you, man?
Hey guys, thank you very much for having me, Richie. That's awesome.
Yeah, great to have you on, dude. And Joe, as always, great co-host. How have you been keeping over the weekend, Joe?
Yeah, grand, man. Didn't do an awful lot. Just fucking sat about the sofa, watched The Guns in Navarone. It was pretty fucking class, to be honest.
I saw Force 10 on Navarone actually lately. That was I said I'd love to see Guns, obviously. Who's
one
in that?
Things, isn't it? Like Easter's like a kind of like a miniature Christmas vibe, like a just fucking food and films you've seen too many times on the sofa.
Yeah, I watched Gladiator actually, and I wasn't too cut up over leaving it 3/4 way, you know. I had like great memories of it, and then I think it's probably the 4th time I've seen it, but I was watching it with the young fella, and because he's big into Assassin's Creed and a few other things, so there's some Assassin's Creed that is situated around the time of the Roman Empire, and funnily enough, that brings us nicely in to what you've done, Jude, with your new album. Semper Pessimus. Would that be the right pronunciation?
Pessimus. So Semper Pessimus is Roman Latin, and it means the worst ever. So our album is literally called The Worst Ever.
Classic, man.
The cover art's great though, man. It's got that, you know, concept-y album type vibe where the artwork really ties into it, doesn't it?
Yeah, the cover art was actually done by Aaron's dad, Paul McCarroll, our drummer.
Wow.
Yeah, he used to drum for a band called Scald, if you remember them.
Joe might, I wouldn't know.
Yep.
So Paul McCarroll it's funny, it's just one of those things because Aaron was actually in the band for about 4 years before we knew anything about his dad doing artwork for various bands. And it was like, right, well, cheers for the heads up, lad. You know? Fucking
hell. And the artwork you were using before that, or the artist, who was that?
That was a guy called Chaos Touched, who's a tattoo artist. I think he's from Italy. And it's a bit more digital, whereas what Paul McCarroll done for us was an old-fashioned oil painting where he actually attacked the canvas. You know? Nice. So that was cool. It's nice to actually see the artwork on a big fuck-off canvas as well. Like, it's just different for us. Never done it that way, you know? Yeah.
And so, Jude, for people who don't know, that you are the vocalist and guitarist with the band, a virtuoso on guitar, may I say, because that fucking new album is just outrageous with musicianship. Mental. And how did you start? Are you self-taught or what? Or did you get lessons?
I was taught guitar. I had lessons from a guy he actually guests on the album too, my guitar teacher. He's on track 10. Class. He does a wee guitar solo. But my guitar teacher isn't like most guitar teachers, I would say, like the way some people would go and have very formulated, regimented practice routines from someone. My guitar teacher was like an old stoner rock and roll guy that just loves rock and heavy metal and would just teach me how to play it and taught me a lot about listening to it. And you know, he can be quite philosophical too. He's a great player. He's a guy, Eugene Mitchell. And he would sort of sit you down and just lecture you about why Thin Lizzy's the best and then make you learn Thin Lizzy licks, you know. So it worked out all right.
How old were you when you got your first lessons, Jude?
I was 9.
9? Oh, yeah. Jesus Christ, like, you've been at it a long while. Makes sense.
Yeah,
well, it's all been fun, you know. Joe will tell you the same thing, I'm sure.
You find yourself a bit more full circle, man, like from going from, you know, maybe stuff like Lizzy that you would have been listening to, you know, right at the start like that, to going into, like, listen to a load of technical stuff, to going back to that kind of stuff, or what are you listening to these days?
I'm listening to loads of jazz and fusion at the minute. Lots of instrumental shit. I love Aldi Meola and Frank Gambale and a lot of jazz guitarists. But interestingly, I'm not so much into the like exclusively wanky jazz. If you know the elevator music, you know, I like the kind of rock edge stuff where there's still a bit of a hardness to it. Good double bass drumming, lots of funky bass, Latin bass. I'm a big fan of Latin bass, and drummers like Alphonse Mouzon, who were like, see Alphonse Mouzon, you could put two bongos and a frying pan in front of him, and he will just compose an absolute orchestration of a drum solo like you've never heard. And it's funny, there is like a weird connection between thrash metal and jazz. Like even some of my favorite thrash guitar players are guys like Alex Skolnick and Chris Poland.
Yeah.
And Alex Skolnick's played with Alphonse Mouzon, and Chris Poland's played with every jazz musician, like the Western world.
Playing in like Mahavishnu Orchestra, or that kind of.
Totally.
Yeah, your man Gary Moore had a great band in the 70s called Coliseum
2. Yeah,
and it was a similar kind of stuff, wasn't it? Like sort of fusionish, but I suppose all those boys were kind of a wee bit too rooted in like maybe rock and like progressive music. They weren't really going to make like flamenco tunes and that sort of stuff. Like maybe Apple did.
The same boys could have. Make no mistake about it. Like they do quite like a Coliseum 2 would have a sort of a fusion edge, but it was maybe closer to Yes and Genesis, 70s era Yes and Genesis, than say like Return to Forever or Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Yeah. There's some great players as well. Do you know what? Actually, he was on your album, Tony Portaro.
Yeah, from Whiplash.
Yes, there's another dude there that I bet you he's into jazz and whatever else like that.
He's actually, he's a certified jazz freak under Berklee College of Music. Like he's a Cartarian jazzer,
Fuck's sake. Like you could hear some of that in Whiplash, early Whiplash. Yeah. And there's another band as well called Wargasm. Remember them? Back in the 80s as well. Another brilliant guitarist as well.
Man, Richie, their name got... there's like some band going around the UK now called Wargasm.
What?
Seriously?
Yeah, because there was do you remember when the Deftones and Obituary and all were supposed to do like a festival down south last year? With Faith No More and stuff.
Oh yeah, Sunstroke.
Yeah. A band called Wargasm, and I was like, oh no way, I'd love to see Wargasm. And then looked it up, and it was some pretenders to the film.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
There's also a Metallica tribute band from Sligo called Whiplash.
Yeah, I've seen them a lot of times. Yeah, they're brilliant.
Yeah, they do the job well. They do it very well.
Yeah, I suppose they're entitled to be called Whiplash.
Yeah, but they're not Whiplash.
No, they're certainly not. So, like, what was the whole idea of going concept with this album, first of all?
Probably just like any other band, you do some reading or some research, and you're looking to throw some concepts in for individual songs. But I kind of go through phases where I'm reading about something, or if I'm reading about that thing, it's just that thing. And it happened to be Rome at the time that we were writing the material for Semper Pessimus. So I wanted to do the story of Nero Claudius, because I just found his life's like so bizarre and twisted. He had every toxic relationship that you can imagine, from like abusive mother to incestuous father to the whole works. And there's a big rock star element to Nero as well, so that kind of resonated as well with us. So we were like, yeah, let's go for that.
You didn't have to sell it much to the lads then, no?
It's definitely a big character, man, isn't it?
Pardon?
Sorry, Richie, what were you saying?
I was just saying you didn't have to sell it much to the lads. That's all I'm saying. The concept album.
Oh, right.
What were you saying, Joe?
No, Richie was asking, did you have to sell the concept idea to the other two boys in the band much, or were they?
They were happy enough to go ahead with it. I could write lyrics about anything, and as long as they're playing their tits off, they'd be happy along to go.
But yeah, it's a bit of a departure though. Was it because you had done like quite a lot of stuff quite quickly, as in a couple albums for Witch's Brew and stuff, in like a couple of years apart and stuff, and then was the last thing you did the EP, the 2015 thing, or was there another album after that?
No, the last one was the Combine Harvester one, which was 2016.
So is that like what, like he's been working on this one then for like a lot longer than you usually would for a record, right?
Yeah. But I mean, in fairness, like we started putting songs together for it in 2016, and then me and Jake ended up filling in for Hellbastard for 2 tours and just helping out. And then Aaron was drumming with Zlatnara. Now Acid Age was still writing amongst all this. And then COVID hit and the world changed so many thousands of times. And, you know,
like in 2016, Jude, were you still a 3-piece or were you a 4-piece at that stage?
We've had lineup changes all throughout the writing process. We were actually a 6-piece at a point.
Right.
Yes.
Where we had a violin player and everything.
That was something I was expecting, funny enough, because whenever you originally said that, you know, you were doing like a kind of an album, you know, where there was going to have a theme around, you know, Rome, and there was like going to be a fiddle player in the band.
Yeah.
I was kind of listening to the album thinking there'd be a fiddle solo or something here. Well, so what was it? Because you originally, like, you went from being like 3-piece at the start, and then adding Eddie on vocals, and then adding was it Matt on rhythm guitar? Was it or?
Yeah.
And then adding violin player.
Yeah, and then actually Eddie left, and we had Eddie Bailey from English Dog singing for us for a while.
Yes, that's true.
You know, we've done that much chopping and changing, but what we were trying to do was just experiment a wee bit, and we weren't trying to build a whole new band or anything. We were just trying to see, like, how far can we push the thing? But there's a certain security comes with having, like, just a trio where it's, okay, all of us fit in one car, all of us, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, things didn't work out with the other members. Like, Matty was very focused. He does jiu-jitsu, and he was very focused on that, so he had to pursue that. Eddie was in Mortimized, and Mortimized was kind of starting to take off. So, like, me and him had a chat, and we had a mutual agreement, really, that he would pursue Mortimized, and I continue working on Acid Age. Anna had to leave the band because she came down with this condition known as pregnancy. You know, me and Anna and all of our members, like past and present, we're all still on good terms, you know. Right. We don't have any bad blood or anything, but things just worked out that we were just straight back to a trio, and that's kind of how we intend to keep it now, you know.
Is it a funny thing though as well, though, man, in the sense that, you know, I think whenever you started out, there was a bit more kind of Zappa thing, because it's like, you know, you and Jake are very accomplished players, so it's like we kind of write whatever sort of riff. Was there a bit of a kind of like thrashing up the riff whenever you had like other members in? Like, were you having to Zappa school them, or were you just like, right, okay?
Maybe a wee bit in some areas. Like Anna is she's actually an All-Ireland violinist, a champion, like, and as far as Irish traditional goes, like, she is a fantastic player, you know, and she's got her grades and all too. But I was trying to introduce her to like Jean-Luc Ponty and all those kind of violin players, and be like, you know, you can go eccentric. It doesn't have to follow this melody or feel like a reel or a jig, you know.
Yeah.
So there was a wee bit of that, certainly. But I'll tell you what, one of the most impressive things I ever saw Anna do, and I wish it had been recorded. One day she stuck on Bonded by Blood and just played violin over the top of it, like the whole album, start to finish.
Yeah.
That was wicked, you know. It was really cool to see that, you know.
Jesus. And like, he had loads of trouble with the Combine Harvester. Did you record that 3 times or something?
No. We recorded it once. We had loads of trouble with this current one. We've recorded it, Semper Pessimus, a few times.
Oh, right. Okay. So it's the actual new one. Jesus. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's a 5-year gap between this and the last album. So we had tried everything, recorded with here, recorded there, and then we eventually decided to go analog. And, you know, as I've said, it's no disrespect to digital albums. It would be hypocritical of me to... It's not some, like, analog or die fucking cult thrash thing, you know. I love digital albums. A lot of my favourite albums are done that way. But this was about us being a young band, like, let's try this old school method that's, like, way before our time, and just for a bit of fun, you know. So that's why we went and done that in the end. And it actually turned out to be, it was meant to be, I believe. It's the way the album was supposed to sound, you know.
Yeah, when you're going into that whole analog recording, is there much difference in relation to how you set up with your guitars, or is there...
Everything's different.
Okay, can you walk us through that, Jude? Because some of us wouldn't know, you know.
You have to relearn basically the whole procedure of recording. So everything comes into account now. You're also required to use less gain on your amp. So if you want a big crunchy metal sound, you don't set up a crunchy metal sound. You set up a hard rock sound, and you know you want to blend it. You don't just mic up the amp; you mic up the room.
Oh, okay.
Wee details as well, like because it's recorded to tape, there's no like cut and paste. So either the band can play the entire tune all the way through, or fuck you, you know. Mm-hmm. So you have to nail the whole take, and you have to have a good energy as well. So you can record something perfect all the way through and listen to it and still be like, I don't like the energy on it, you know, and then you have to redo it. You know? Yeah. So things like that. And the main one is just the lack of cut and paste and the editing. It really comes down to the editing and the production that's different. You know, recording is recording, but the actual process of, you know, even post-production is much different because you're standing in every single angle of the room with a microphone trying to find the right tone. And whereas now you can kind of, and it's a blessing actually, now you can just kind of download a VST. It's like, okay, so I want Dave Mustaine's guitar sound. You type it in, you hit it, you get it, you know?
Yeah. It's weird, like something that I always wondered about, because when we started out, we did our first demos and stuff on analog, and like it's something that I think a lot of people don't realize is like making music generally without being able to see what you're doing. Like people who make music now are relying on their ears and their eyes, and sometimes it's their eyes that are telling them if something's out of time or in time and stuff.
Yeah,
it's like whenever you're doing it the other way around, you're 100% reliant on what you can hear, you know. And it's a totally different ball game, as you said, not being able to drop in to fix a riff or, you know, drop in to fix a drum fill and stuff, you know. But that's like, so if you guys recorded it, did the material change, or did you guys keep the same songs and then re-record them again and again, or what?
We recorded them with a 6-piece band first, and then it was a case of whenever we slimmed down to a trio again, we had to readapt the songs to suit a trio. So there's still quite a lot of, you know, you can still do layers and all, obviously, with analog. You know, it's not that bad. But when you're layering, you're now thinking about, okay, so we're a trio rather than a 6-piece. And that does play a wee bit in your head too, because, you know, you're thinking about, okay, do I do 16 harmony guitars, and do I get the didgeridoo out, and do I have an orchestra behind me or whatever? You know, you can go totally, you know, Joe, like you can go totally AWOL and just go mad and have the best fun recording. But the big thing for us going analog this time, and you can do this digital too, I will say, but the big one for the analog thing was we wanted to be in a room together, and a big room, a drum room with a big high ceiling and a nice, you know, nice acoustics. And we wanted to enjoy the process of recording, you know, rather than I've been in situations before where I'm maybe sitting and, you know, I'm tracking a guitar and all I hear is blip, 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 you know, and the click track and all that can be a bit not bad but annoying, you know. Like I just rather play with a drummer. So that's what we went with this time. Just let's get the three of us in together. You'll actually catch the live energy of the band, and the way it's recorded is the way that we sound.
Yes,
you know?
yes. So therefore there wasn't a lot of chopping and changing of songs, so you literally went in and there wasn't really much changes to any of the songs as such then?
Not in terms of structure or lyrics or anything. Maybe a second guitar part where Maddie maybe had a part. Jake would say, hey, I can do that on the bass instead, or something like that, you know.
Yeah. And it was like, why did you go with Lee Small then?
We actually were looking for someone to produce the album. Now, we've had plenty of engineers, but we've never had a producer. And for us, especially trying a brand new recording method, or new for us. We wanted to make sure that there was someone with a bit of expertise in that field that was going to, give us a good kick up the hole. And see, to be fair, Elise is a very, very, very inspiring person, even on just like a pure human level. She's, her life story and everything. She's born in Vietnam. She was abandoned as a child. She was an orphan and then adopted by French parents, and she's been all around the world recording with various bands, and she's a very, very, very interesting person, and her experiences and the way she thinks about things certainly affect her production. She would come at you with something like some cultural thing, so she'd be saying, oh yeah, so a lot of music from Slovenia will have this kind of thing, and then you'll just open your mind to some new idea, So that's kind of what we wanted, because we're just a trio, but if we can have a fourth voice in who's going to help us, it's only going to benefit.
And like, what artists has she worked with, Jude?
She actually, there's a band from Belfast called Bad Boat. I don't know if you know them.
Yeah, I heard of Bad Boat, yeah.
Well, she's worked with them as well. But she would work a lot with like folk bands and, like weird ensemble things. Like, I can't remember the name of the project, but she let me hear something, and it was someone on a piano, someone with a harp, and then someone absolutely shredding an electric guitar. And it was just the weirdest, thing. I just find it so interesting,
Yeah.
So it's off the wall, some of the stuff she's doing.
It's definitely a production, man, that like you can hear the influences in it. Like there is that Al Di Meola in the guitar sound as well as Master of Puppets, But the drums and the bass are also really interesting, because you can definitely hear the kind of death, the Giorgio-y kind of sound in some of it.
You can, and Primus as well.
Some elements of it are really outside metal. It's not a drum sound that you would hear on a heavy metal album usually,
Yeah. That's interesting, because one of my favorite productions ever is the Black Sabbath Heaven and Hell album. I just think the production on it's flawless. Before they bastardized it with the 2009 remaster, just the old school one, I love it. I think, don't touch it. It's perfect, And funny enough, when we were listening to the drums, that was one of the things we were listening out for. It was like, how close is the reverb of the room to Bill Ward's reverb on the Heaven and Hell album,
Jesus.
So you do get the, but it's not an added reverb after. It's actually the sound of the room that reverbs, So that's cool.
It sort of puts me in mind. There's an album. I don't know if you know it. Mind Wars by Holy Terror.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's got a very similar, like you could nearly imagine like Led Zeppelin playing through that production, but it's like just really fast. So like it doesn't have that high gain chugging that you associate with heavy metal, but it has a really clear kind of organic sound.
Yeah.
But I think it's to be commended, man. Like, there's definitely a problem with metal that too many albums sound the same, or too many bands have similar sounds, and like that's the thing that like made all the bands that we love great back in the day. It was Judas Priest's guitar sound, or Iron Maiden's bass sound.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing, you see a lot of bands that are kind of going back to analog too now. Older bands that are talking about, oh yeah, I'm gonna like Anthrax did an album a couple of years ago. I can't just mind the name of it. It's the one with Fight 'Em Till You Can't on it. Worship Music.
Yeah.
Yep.
Worship Music. Charlie Benanti actually recorded all the drums to 2-inch tape as well. He says he just prefers the sound of the proper spreading the disease drum production. He was trying to recapture that, So it's maybe the kind of thing that's going to end up becoming trendy or just completely obliterated. It can only go one of two ways, I think. But
is there much
enjoyed the process?
Yeah, and is there much of a difference in price, Jude, between going digital and analog?
Oh hell yeah! It's far more expensive to do it analog, because you're paying for reels and tape, and it's not as simple as just saving a file on a computer. Like you're paying for every reel, and maybe like for 2-inch tape, one reel you're talking about 70 quid. And you maybe need like 6 of them just to get a full album's worth. And then so you went to all that trouble, and then you sent it off then to Joel Grind of Toxic Holocaust. Yeah.
Why Joel?
Joel's kind of had his finger in a lot of great productions lately, and he does work a lot with analog bands as well.
Okay.
And it was sort of at least he knows what he's doing. And I do like his work, you know. It doesn't matter if it's him producing something or mastering something or just his band. Like, I love Toxic Holocaust as well. And you know what else? He was an absolute pleasure to work with. We sent him the full album of stuff, and he says to me, it'll probably take me about a week. And I was thinking, yeah, right, an hour's worth of music, you're going to master it in a week. He got back to me in 3 days and it was done. And not only did he have it mastered, he had alternate masters. He had a master for CD, a master for vinyl, a master for tape, a master for MP3, and a master for WAV. So, like, he's just an absolute machine. I don't know how he finds time to do it.
Jesus Christ, that's nuts, isn't it? 3 days.
Yeah.
Fuck me. Must have loved it, man. Simple as that. Now, the two of you have a lot of connections going back. I know that John Roach played on your album.
John's the man. He's absolutely brilliant. Such a stellar guitar player. Like,
man, that's high praise coming from you. Fucking hell.
Well, I tell you what, one of the first things I remember when we got John to guest in that track, and I got the isolated track back, and I remember listening to it, and I knew fine rightly he hadn't VST'd it. He'd actually mic'd up an amp. And I remember thinking, oh, that guitar sounds glorious. It was actually the best tone on the whole recording, was that wee bit of guitar playing John done. The sound was just absolutely beautiful. And
he used to go to a guitar institute over in England. And did you ever see Wayne's World?
Yeah.
Remember Pete Friesen, the guy who played in Alice Cooper's band, where he's like, actually, isn't that Milwaukee?
Yeah.
That was John's guitar teacher. So him and a couple other dudes, like Chris from Divine Chaos and stuff, they all were in the same shred college together for a while. Which was, and that was the good thing about getting John into the band, was it was like someone who wanted to do that kind of stuff, because Dom was a lot more of a kind of bluesy dude, or like a Thin Lizzy type guy, you know.
Yeah, well, funny enough, see, while you're talking about that, one thing I've noticed about Domo, see, in Untouchable Glory, Domo has a really bluesy guitar sound for the leads, which I thought was really different, not just for thrash, but for Gamma Bomb as well. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I loved the tone and the touch that he got. It was really bizarre, because it sounded like, okay, he's not using a Charvel Strat there. That sounds like Jimi Hendrix's Strat, you know, for the leads, but he's still playing blistering lines, you know.
The thing, like all the lads since then, like we have this like really old Charvel that we use for doing our rhythm tracks on, and like it's dead notes from like the 12th fret up, and like, you know, you can't even use the B string on it; it's totally frigged. But like it was the one that we used to use all the time back in the day, and like the Max Cavalera strings on it sound amazing. So we use it for all the rhythm tracks, and then the lads use those Vigeurs for doing all the leads, and they're class.
Are they using the Vigiers exclusively now, or?
No, like, because basically what the crack was that like we had an endorsement and stuff from Jackson, or from Charvel and Jackson, and then they moved over to Aristides, who made those like Arium guitars and shit. But like then they ended up losing one, because there was a picture of one of them playing some other guitar, and you kind of realize the older you get that you just actually want to play whatever guitars you want, and like, if having an endorsement means you're not allowed to play your favorite Les Paul, then you're better off just playing your favorite Les Paul. So they'll play like a PRS or a Les Paul in the studio for their
Bill Steer said the same thing. He's actually famous for turning down endorsements, and like big companies approach him. Gibson have been like, here, we'll build you ESP, you name it. And he's apparently turned them all down, saying, no, look, I just use whatever I want, you know.
And dude, I think that is definitely, that's the way to do it, because like if you think back to, you know, even like there's probably Floyd Rose guitars that you love, but like, you know, if someone had to say you had to play Floyd Rose guitars, you would probably put your hair out, like, you know.
Yeah. The other thing is, I think endorsements are better for like small items. So if you could get, I would rather have an endorsement for like strings and guitar picks than like guitars, you know. I think that would be much more beneficial.
There's not really shit about rock and roll like that, in terms of great. You know, if Jack Daniels want to sponsor you or something, I think that's brilliant, and I would love that, obviously. But like, there's like this whole fucking like Monster Energy drinks and stuff like that, that sort of stuff. It's like, you know, whenever you see pictures of Iron Maiden wearing all their Nike gear, and you're just like, oh, lads,
they're
really?
doing the Garth Algar. It's like, people only do things for the money, man.
Anyway, I got a message from Anto from Senescence, and he said for you to buy a real amp, Jude.
Me to buy oh, I know what he's talking about. Okay. Anto doesn't like Marshall, right? Okay. It's not Anto's fault. Anto is a great guy, but he was dropped on his head as a child. So he hates Marshalls. And look, I can't help that. And I don't even use Marshall. I just like them.
And on what side does Big Paul fall on then?
Big Paul loves Marshall as well.
So. Okay.
So you know, all those bands that like I would always associate like Senescence with that kind of like nearly sort of like Randall or Engel tone, you know, and it's like of that era, you know, like that sort of, there was a band like that time, and they were like, you know, later day Metallica, you know, Therapy, that kind of thing, and it just had that kind of 90s tone, the knives.
Absolutely. Like maybe even a wee bit of Prong or something.
Yeah. Good lads. Yeah, we should definitely. It's weird, isn't it? Like whenever you think of like things like that, like Senescence and Gamma Bomb and Acid Age, like there's actually not really that many bands still going in Northern Ireland who've been about for like 10 or 12 or 20 years or whatever, you know? Like some of the oldest dudes like Condemned or Honey for Christ and stuff like have quit in the last. Like Bad Boat are probably one of the oldest bands apart from, you know, us or Senescence.
Well, Sky Pilot are 20 years as well, aren't they?
Yeah. There's actually it's funny you're saying that, because I've been talking to everyone all week about Visceral Attack. It's been the weirdest week. Jake has actually started working a new job, and Aidan is fucking working with him. And it's like, I know you know.
Those guys are gonna fucking get lost into the biggest cloud of dope smoke of all time. Like, you know, there's and both of them are exactly the same, like kind of like quiet lads who like playing weird sweeps, like, you know.
The thing is with them, with Visceral Attack, is they're a band I still thoroughly miss. Like, see that Quick and Severe release? I still think it's one of the best things to ever come out of the island. I love that album. It was like every track on it's perfect. All the sound clips from the movies and all on it. The artwork, I love the entire thing, and it's one of those bands, like everyone gets them, I'm sure. Like there's that one local band that you wish, oh, for fuck's sake, lads, get it together. For me, it's Visceral Attack. Like, you know, I'd love to give them a good fucking good talking to.
Like, well, not like fucking steer the band, but like Domo produced like a 7-inch for them. Yeah. And we brought them out on tour and stuff, and then like got them some gigs like supporting Xentrix and stuff in Dublin. And
the first time I actually saw them was supporting you guys on SSS, and that was in not Mandela, in the bar, you know.
In the bar, yeah, in Queen's Union or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, so like they're a totally class band, but it was like right at that cusp of after they did a UK tour with us, I got them on an option to do a UK tour with Savage Messiah, and a couple of the lads in Visceral Attack were doing uni, and it was just like the wrong time, and then just like literally a couple of months later, everyone was like, nah, I can't be old, look, you know.
It's sad too, like obviously, you know, life goes on and some people go to uni and then mortgages happen and stuff, but they're one of the bands I actually hope someday has like at least a 20-year anniversary or something, you know, some kind of...
I think they will do something like right around the time they broke up. They had most of their next album written and demoed and stuff, so I'd be really surprised, especially because like Adam, the rhythm guitar player, like fills in for Gamma Bomb occasionally, so he's going to do this tour with Exorder now in October or whatever with us. So he still plays guitar, and Eddie still plays guitar and stuff. And Chris, their singer, is in Subordinate, or like a grind band.
They're like a crossover type thing.
Actually, then they're all still playing. Like.
It wouldn't take too much convincing really to get them together.
Like, let's talk about support slots that G played in, Jude. Name out a few that were memorable.
DRI was a cool one. Acid Rain was a good one.
That was a brilliant gig.
Oh yeah, and Gamma Bomb actually was one of our first support slots, if not our first big support slot. Funny, I would love to do some more stuff with Gamma Bomb, like eventually, obviously when all this shit lifts. Hope we can get something sorted, Joe, because I actually remember thinking the kind of difference from our new album, the Semper Pessimus stuff, actually could really complement your show really well as well too, as like an opening band too. We should get a physical attack on it as well.
It's one of those things, isn't it? Like where, like the older the longer in the game, the more you realise you're better off playing with different styles of bands and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Similar bands. But yeah, it'd be great to get you guys over for a couple of gigs in England or something if it was possible. Like later in the thing. But yeah, man, like I'm actually going to go and grab a beer. Tell Richie the bloody Acid Rain Part 1 nightmare that happened last year.
Oh yeah, I love telling this story.
The Acid Rain Part 1, okay.
Yeah. So what happened was we were on our way to support Acid Rain, and it was, great opportunity for us. We were really excited. We're on our way to Dublin, and Jake, our bass player, had just bought a new car, brand new car. It was actually an ex-police car, and he was told by the car salesman that, this is 100%. This car is the shit, man. You can drive this through the Taliban drive this through the desert, like you'll be grand. So Jake takes the car, and we all loaded up with our gear. And about 30 miles outside Dublin, there's just a ball of flames come out of the front of it.
Jesus Christ! Okay.
So we didn't know, what do we do here? Do we bail out of the car and just fucking duck and roll, or do we pull? So Jake wrestles with the car, pulls it in. We all get out of the car, and like the car's fucked. Right? There's a wee petrol station over the road, so we run across the motorway because the car's not doing it. We run across,
and the car's still on fire, like.
It stopped actually, but it was smoking like
a bastard. Yeah. Jesus.
So we run into the shop, and we're just like looking for fucking everything, radiator coolant, fucking duct tape, you name it, Head back into over to the car, open it up, and we're looking at it, and Aaron's like shining a torch on it, and we're fucking trying to pull apart the car, and like none of us have a clue. Not a mechanic.
I was going to say like, because I'd be fucked straight away.
Yeah,
no clue.
I'll tell you what I do know for sure: you can't duct tape a radiator back together. So we made efforts to do that, and we left.
Jesus, what time is it now at this stage? Like, how much?
Well, we left Cookstown at 1:30 in the afternoon. Right?
Oh Jesus! Okay, you gave yourselves plenty of time.
Well, yeah, because we were going to go down and just load in, do our sound check, fuck off, and get a bite to eat. By the time we actually, what happened was by the time the car went up, it was probably about 7:30. And we were now stuck with this car. We're trying to phone people, sort it. We're standing on the hard shoulder, trying to work out what to do. Can't get any signal was another thing. No one's phone was like behaving. Until Aaron actually pointed out, look, there's one of those SOS phones. Now,
the ones that never... Do they actually work?
Yeah, they do, but I've never used one in my life. So that was you talk about retro thrash, that was the most retro piece of equipment I've ever fucking put my hand to in my life. I went over and we rang it, and you don't even know what to say because there's like no guidance on, help, my car's on fire. So they send out a guy with a tow truck, and he loads the car up. And as it turns out, he was just a mental bastard. That guy was nuts because he was sitting in the car. He's like, "You're in a band, are you?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he says, "Yeah, see Elvis? Elvis isn't dead, I swear. See if you've £100.
Jesus Christ.
He says, if you've £100, you put a bet on tomorrow. Elvis is going to come out alive in the next few years. I'd bet £100 on it tomorrow." And
Joey, like, I presume you still have that docket, yeah?
Yeah. So that went on for a while, and we ended up getting dropped off. I think it was Lusk or something we were left in.
What? Jesus Christ, Lusk.
He just dumped us and all the gear and then took the car off and basically give Jake a bill, like wrote it out, says, there you go, Jake. Here. So we didn't make it to Acid Rain. By the time we got back to Cookstown, now we left Cookstown at 1:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
By the time we got back to Cookstown, it was 1:30 in the morning.
Oh my fucking God.
So no gig, like completely broken, no mojo, no joy, you know.
And you're still together after all that. That's the sign of a fucking great band, Joe.
Those are the kind of camaraderie moments, aren't there, where you're relying on, like, you're lucky that you're there with your mates. Could you imagine being there with guys you fucking hated or something like that? You'd be like,
best moments.
Because all it takes is one fucker to start moaning, like.
What was that, Richie?
I said all it takes is for one fucker to start moaning and complaining, and then you're just going, oh, for fuck's sake, here we go, you know. But yeah, it's great sign of fucking.
I was going to say, from Acid Rain, give you a lovely shout out that night anyway, man. So we did.
We got a hard booing from the audience too.
You know, man, that's fucking great. There were people there who knew who were looking forward and instead of people being like, I don't care if they're playing or not. Like, you know, that's like.
Joe, I'd have fucking booed me too. You know what it's like when you're throwing the beer in you. It's like, yeah, the band didn't show up. Well, fuck the band, you know. Like.
And who did anybody jump in instead of you? No. Who was the other band?
No, actually, there was Animator. We're playing as well.
Animator, class, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it would have been a great gig. So we went and did the following gig, which was in Belfast, and then. H from Acid Rain cracked some joke about it's not the first time that a car from Northern Ireland's been seen in flames, you know. And it was one of those, do you know, one of those Dave Mustaine, this one's for the cause moments where the entire audience is just staring at him.
Sure, he's a natural comedian. You give him license for that, surely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's a great lad, but like, I don't know, the fact that he's been a stand-up comedian for 25 years baffles me. Like, he's always putting his foot immediately in the middle of his mouth.
Oh, he's a funny bastard though.
Yeah, Dave released a fantastic album last year.
Age of Entitlement. Some
fucking return to form, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
This kind of segues. I don't know if you're happy enough talking about this, man, but like Dissonance and like, well, so because we had the exact thing happen to us with our first record, man, you know.
The record label.
Yeah, we signed a Nuclear Assaults label to make our first album, and they basically said to us, make the album and then we'll bring it out and blah blah blah. And we made the album and then handed it in, and they were like, oh, the label's going bust or like whatever. But so what was the deal with you guys?
Dissonance is a really interesting one. We approached them. That's the first thing I should say. Like, it wasn't like they contacted us. We went to them with the idea that, like, yeah, let's do this. We've got this album. We've got it mostly written. We had enough of it recorded where we could send them and say, here's some raws. If you want to check it out. They got back to us, and it was maybe 2 or 3 days of chatting on the phone with the guy that runs the label. Yeah. I didn't know anything about him. I'd never met him or anything, but, you know, he seemed pleasant enough on the phone, and we're chatting. He says, yeah, we're doing this, and we're releasing this, and we've done this with Diamond Head, and we've got, you know, this band and whatever else. And we were going,
sorry, Jude, where are they based? Where? Or who?
London.
Oh, London. Okay, I thought they were American. Okay, yeah.
So he was saying, yeah, we've got they just signed a band called Toledo Steel that I really like, and they had also got Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper around the same time as us, and we were really excited. They sent us out contracts, and we signed the contracts, read them. Now, the contract was pretty interesting because it was mostly in our favor, so it was like a good contract. So we signed it and sent it back to them. And then we couldn't get in contact with them ever since. We were writing to them, emailing them, you know, like literally it got so bad after about a year that I literally took out, it was a year of them ignoring, ghosting, not answering the phone, not answering emails, not answering Facebook. You know, it actually got so bad that I literally wrote a letter, like pen and paper letter, with a stamp and everything, and sent it to them. It's like, can you please fucking answer us, kind of thing. But after one strong worded email, I sort of said, I wrote an email with the header just saying, "This is urgent. Can you please contact us?" You know, big capitals. You know, I kind of got fed up, and I didn't know, because we had signed the contract and it was countersigned, and as far as we were concerned, that was it. You know, they were putting out the album as the agreement would state. After I sent them the final strong-worded email, we got a response from another, not the same guy, but from another guy who basically said, "Hi guys, just to let you know, we're selling the label and every band that's on it's been dropped. Sorry, better luck next time," kind of thing. And I remember thinking, the thing wasn't, you know, obviously COVID had happened and the world had changed so much. My issue wasn't at any point them saying, "Look, we can't do this for you, we're sorry." It wasn't even anything to do with, "Oh, we're selling the label." My issue was the absolute shit level of communication.
Yeah.
You know, if they had said to me at any point, "I don't think we can do what we've promised you in contract," I'd be like,
exactly. You can move on, like, for fuck's sake.
I'd be like, "Look, lads, fuck's sake, this pandemic's racked small businesses left, right, and centre." You know, I couldn't blame them at all. You know, but the lack of communication just felt like a.
So that cost you a year.
Like plastic, you know.
It cost the band a year, then, basically.
Oh yeah, there was a constant year of trying to get in contact with our label. You know,
that's just fucking nuts. How is that possible? Like,
man, if you guys had a record this kick-ass album and handed it into them, and then we're in this situation, you know, where you were trying to get in contact with them, what's going on with promoting the album, and they were just ignoring you. It's like, I think you guys missed a major bullet in terms of doing that, because whenever I was working with Agent Steel and they were signed with Dissonance, I had dealings with the label, and they just seemed really rink-a-dink. Like, you know, it was like the dude, like, this is like public knowledge or whatever, the dude who was running the show was one of the big guys who was backing Plastic Head distribution and stuff like that. And he was an independently wealthy guy, and allegedly had some pretty far-right political connections and stuff like that. So
what I had heard something similar about that, but this was all after the fact. And what I had actually heard was he worked for, it was something to do with local agriculture in his area. So he was like a fucking, I don't know what the title is, a supreme chancellor of agriculture, you know. But he actually had done his part to get UKIP underway and sort of gave a big fucking payout, or not a payout, a handout to Nigel Farage, sort of like a, if you support our farmers in the area, we'll give you a push in your political movement, you know.
Jesus, so, like, Christ, this is nuts.
Ultimately, it probably ended up being for the best, because I didn't know all that till after the fact, you know. It's one of those things where, like, you don't know who you're really dealing with. Like, I go over to the road to the shop to buy a pint of milk, and I don't know who, like, the girl serving me, is she going to be like extreme far right, or, you know, like, you know, just one of those things.
Having made a brilliant album, and the last thing that you would have wanted to do is inadvertently being in that situation where here's this person who obviously doesn't have the band's best interests at heart, who's now in charge of this thing that is really dear to your heart. And it's kind of like, you guys made this album, the three, is in a very organic way, you know, and it kind of feels like this is the right way to release it, you know, because a lot of people will say in music, like, if you want a job done well, you kind of have to do it yourself, you know. We've been talking loads of management people with Gambom over the last year, and like, people will say, you know, great, if Ron Smallwood is hanging about and he wants to do that, brilliant. But if you have anyone who's less dedicated than you are, you know, how can they possibly do a great job of, you know, banging the drum, you know?
Yeah, that's it. I'm sort of feeling that way myself too, because we did sort of have a few negotiations with other labels, and then like looked at distribution deals and all, and it was sort of like no one was offering anything that we couldn't do ourselves. And I mean that with no disrespect, because I love independent labels. I mean, first Gamma Bomb album I ever owned was released through Witches Brew, you know, like I've always liked independent, you know, but my feelings on it were just like, I don't think if you're going to offer me something that I can just fucking do myself at half an hour at the laptop, like there's nearly no point, you know. And Jake and Aaron's sort of taken that as well. They're like, Aaron would be very protective of Acid Age. Like, he wouldn't like he doesn't like too many people having influence on it, or it's about convincing him to let's try a producer, and he'll be like, we joke and call him Semper Pessimist. So,
but you always need one of them in the band, though.
Well, it's really good to have him, because the thing is, I'm like the other way. I'm like, let's do everything all the time. And Aaron's like, no, let's do nothing. And then Jake's like the balance between us, So like between the three of us, we end up always coming to an agreement where all three of us are 100% happy before we go forward with anything. And that's how we've done everything, from production to how we're releasing the album, what format it's going on, where we're distributing it, So it's worked out well.
And at the end of the day, man, I think that's the most important thing. Never mind labels or even albums or whatever. It's like the camaraderie between the three dudes in the band, and the chemistry there to make more brilliant music is all dependent on you guys being great mates with each other, And it's like the more things you do that like sort of separate you or, distance you, the more that whole process gets difficult. So I think it's great that you stuck to your guns and brought out a brilliant album. And that it seems like now is a great time, because like there's loads of really big bands and death and thrash and stuff who are sitting on albums because they don't want to bring them out until they can go on tour, Whereas I think you get extra, because you guys have an album out now, there's loads of room for that to get noticed. Whereas I think if there was a new Megadeth album out the same week as you guys or whatever, it's more difficult,
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really good thrash band I'm enjoying at the minute called Enforced.
Yeah, we're all into them.
Kilgrid.
Yeah,
Kilgrid by Enforced. It's fantastic. I couldn't believe when I heard it.
I thought you were outselling that.
Pardon?
I thought your album was outselling that.
Yeah, at a time. I don't know if it is now or not, but I mean, that's superficial crap. But yeah, we did notice, yes.
Yeah, it's a nice one. Have you heard of them, Joe? Yeah, Enforced?
No.
Bit like Power Trip meets what?
I would call them Power Trip on steroids. They're like a faster Power Trip. Power Trip meets Razor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually a very good comparison, yeah.
Sounds pretty good.
Fucking Shotgun Justice. God be with the days.
Certainly give it a shot. I love that kind of style of thrash. And I very much did really like the Power Trip album, especially the production in the first one. I thought it was absolutely killer. But yeah, I think that it's weird. Some forms of thrash end up being overpopulated. A while there was a lot of bands who sounded like Toxic Holocaust, or for a while there was a lot of bands who sounded like Bonded by Blood, kind of Testament-y kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's great that there's bands who are moving more into that kind of slightly hardcore kind of sound, and I'm sure you guys played gigs with Hollow Truth. Do you remember they were from
We never played with them, but yeah, I know the band you're on about. They were like a sort of more like a Power. They were signed to Power Trip's label at a time as well.
Southern Lord.
They were definitely kind of big Suicidal Tendencies fans. So it was that kind of But man, see, to be honest, it's like anything for interest in vocals. There's nothing worse than hearing a band who are musically really cool, and then they just have a James Hetfield impersonator type singer. There's way too much of that kind of stuff in thrash and metal generally.
There is. You're spot on, yeah. What about you, Jude, in relation to vocals? You had to change them a bit for this album because you were singing, giving a voice to, we'll say, characters of the concept story.
Yeah, I actually got snobby with that for a bit of fun. So if you listen to the album, if you hold the actual CD, you'll see certain songs are written, obviously, different periods of Nero's life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a singer. I don't sing for anyone ever. But as far as yelling and squealing, yeah, I'll give that a go anytime. That's just great fun. But I tried to do different voices depending on what character I was portraying from the story.
Yeah.
So if I was doing Agrippina, who's the mother of Nero, I would go for a higher pitched, more black metal squealy type thing. If I was doing just like a basic overview narration, it would just be like a death metal voice. And then if it was Nero, I was trying to do like a spoiled brat thrash metal voice, you know? So I tried to get a wee bit arty, but as much as I could without making it like, you ever notice the way fucking Axl Rose has two different voices? He's got his and then he's got his voice, and he kind of changes between the two. So I tried to do something similar to that, but without just radically having different voices, you know. So it felt consistent, but I don't know if anyone would ever pick up on that. That's like the very artistry wank that, you know, only those that wrote it pick up on, you know.
Well, we'll have a listen to my favorite song on the album. They kind of change, but this one for the moment does it for me. It's My Wretched Tomb. And
that's my favorite too.
Is it really? Yeah, there's a fucking brilliant guitar solo on it as well, but we'll give it a go here.
There's about 5 brilliant guitars. No, I'm only joking.
One in particular.
Factually, that's actually the hardest piece of music in the history of the band, like the most difficult to pull off, because there's that many changes, and then there's the wee jazz section, and then, you know, and then there's the big breakdown riff, you know. So
okay, we'll give it a listen here then. Can you hear it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nuts. that is nuts. I just want to ask, first of all, like, Joe, as a bass player, like, that's fucking outrageous what's going on.
One of the things that I absolutely love about it is it has that sort of like the rush feel of like the drums and the bass are doing their own thing. Like, you know, and the guitar will go and leave and do its own crazy stuff, but also come back in for. But like, man, hats off. Like, and the thing is, like, I think a lot of people would know that, like, you and Jake are incredibly accomplished players and stuff, you know. But like, I think like you have to doff your cap to Aaron for being able to like, and that was like a huge thing.
This
like,
is Aaron's first album as well. Like, he's never released anything before this.
Yeah.
You know,
like, man, see, like putting a drum solo in the first song, like, you know, and like. It's like one of those things where it's like a proper, you know, whenever you listen to John Bonham's live drum solos where they're like he starts playing with his hands, it's of that quality. We're gonna go not even left field, but it's like, you know, fucking Twin Peaks Series 3 and like very good.
Like, Jude, how in the name of fuck are you going to remember all those changes? Because this whole album needs to be heard live for the fact, but like, I mean, if you're going to be touring that, it's going to be difficult, first of all, to leave out a few songs, because I think it, as an album, it just...
We're not leaving out anything. We're going to do the album in its entirety.
Yes, that makes sense then, because it'd be very difficult to pick out two songs even to leave out, not mind one.
And actually, the order that they are on the album, it actually flows quite nicely. Like, we have tried it, you know, even rehearsing, and, you know, we've done a lot of the songs live before we recorded them and stuff too.
Yeah.
And I mean, they do flow well.
Like, that's not a denigration of the stuff from the previous albums, because I think there's really good songs and all the stuff that you guys have brought out, but it kind of feels like, you know, that 80s period of Pantera, you know, where it's like, if you like Pantera, here's the releases that have their signature sound, and by the way, they also had the stuff, you know, before that, you know.
You're the second person to mention that to me, actually. The other one was Trevor McCormick.
Shout out to Trev. Cool. Yeah. Cranium Titanium, yeah.
Brilliant guy. Cranium Titanium. But he said the same thing. He was saying, like, are you doing a Pantera where you're just ditching your old stuff and just pretending, you know, you only started at Cowboys from Hell, or what? And I sort of said to him, the band was just...
Man, I think that there's a huge amount of your old sound in the new sound, you know?
Yeah. Look, at its most fundamental fucking basis, it is a thrash metal album. You know, that's my favorite music. I love jazz, I love blues, I love flamenco, I love Latin music, I love it all. But like, thrash metal is the music that, as Gamavon would say, I'm hit to the groove. You know, so like,
well, the spine of this album is thrash. Be the best way I describe it, Jude.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the staccato riffing and all, it's all there, and a lot of the speed and the razor worship, you know. So as soon as you hear the tupa, 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 you know, just a thrash album.
But I mean, Christ almighty, like, as I said, how are you going to remember playing this live? Like, it's just fucking hell. There's so many changes in each song. I mean,
Richie, you're a guitar player as well, aren't you?
Bassist.
You're a bassist?
Yeah.
Is that a bass you have back there, the Flying V?
No, that's for my son.
Oh, right, cool. Right, well, you know yourself then, with playing, you get to a stage where you rehearse that it's actually harder to forget the next section than it is to remember it, you know?
Fair enough.
That's just what it is. It's just rehearsal, you know? But regards to playing live, I actually, you know, James Loveday from the Distortion Project?
Yeah, big shout out to James.
I made him a promise tonight that I'd do this. So I'm going to give you a Metal Cell exclusive here.
Ooh, we like those.
Tomorrow at 10:30 in the morning, the tickets go on sale at wegottickets.com for August 21st. It's the first Acid Age gig back. We'll be playing with two other awesome thrash bands, but you're going to have to check it out tomorrow at 10:30 in the morning or any time after to find out who the other bands are. But we're actually going to do our official album launch in Voodoo in Belfast. and we're going to do the full album in its entirety. Everyone that's going to go is going to get treated to an absolute barrage of the full album, couple of other Acid Age songs, and then we're going to cover the entire Gamma Bomb back catalogue after.
Jesus, there's a temptation now, if ever I fucking needed it, to get up to
so
Belfast.
I promised I would do that for James. So tomorrow at 10:30, that's going to be officially announced, and you got it first.
Cool. The only thing is, this is going to be left out in a week's time.
By the time it's out, this is ancient.
But I appreciate the gesture, and thanks to James.
Yeah, absolutely. But I did promise James I would do that today.
Yeah, top guy. So you haven't been down in Cork for around 7 or 8 years, no?
We've
or
never
ever?
been down to Cork.
Oh no, what you were supposed to be down at that Celtic Trash Festival. That was it, wasn't it?
There was something with Con Doyle that we were supposed to do.
Yeah, that's what it was, Cork. Yeah.
And do you know what? I think that might have had something. I'm not sure if it's the same thing you're talking about, but it was actually the pandemic put that off.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I was going to it. There was that Scottish band, Ilfrin, is it?
Ifrian. Yeah,
Ifrian,
that's it.
Yeah. Crossfire might have been Lever down as well. Yeah.
And do you know what? We did the Belfast date. We wanted to do the Dublin and the Cork date, and then they all got cancelled. But you know what? I would absolutely love to play Cork. I would play Cork tomorrow. Like, I've actually got a lot of family in Cork, so it would make a lot of sense.
Class, man.
Well, Richie is going to put on Richie Fest at some stage, man, aren't you?
I'll have to at this stage, Joe. The Metal Cell will have its own day in the sun in Cork at some stage. Be some lineup.
Excellent.
Only if you bring Gamma Bomb down, Joe.
Yeah, we'd be, man. If you do it for some sort of charity thing, we'll be very happy to fucking.
There you go, man. It started already. Jude, you're invited.
I'm sure Jude could some other band, like we even got Simpsons or whoever. We could run a bus and just fucking pick people up.
You know what I would love to do, Joe? I would love to have like an Irish thrash fest where it's like the most nauseating amount of thrash metal bands you could fit into one festival. You know, where you're like, do you know what it's like, Joe? Like, you actually can't fucking sit through a full band or a full festival of music. Like, no one can do it. I don't care who you are. Like, no one could actually sit through 10 thrash metal bands one after another. After a while, you start to go like a bit vertigo on it. But I would love to have a festival where it's just mental. It's like, you know, Crossfire and Scimitar and Mortal Backlash and Gamma Bomb and Acid Age and fucking
Psychosis. You have to let them
Psychosis, get Saint Slaughter, get Exaltic back together, get Visceral Attack back together, get Mass Extinction back together. You know, just all Irish thrash. One full day where it's just nauseating amounts. You know?
I propose it be held in Sligo. So we can all fucking go up to Sligo and have that go on the lash in Sligo.
Yeah, fucking do it in Sligo. Sounds good to me.
Like, oh man, it's like, I don't even know how long ago it is. It's like fucking about 14 years ago. We played at Whiplash Festival in Sligo with like Headless Cross and a load of other bands.
And what was the crowd like, Joe?
The dude who was the promoter sent me a message saying he was going to kill me because apparently we were dickheads. Like, what?
I remember James Symes putting news on in a gig in Dungannon years and years ago. Luke Graham actually arranged it.
The Fort in Dungannon.
Was indeed.
Yeah,
that's where I played my first ever gig in the Fort.
I can't remember what his name was. What was his name again?
James.
Yeah, he used to run fucking a wee promotion agency, and they used to put on bands. But like, we played a couple of gigs in Belfast, and they were like, "Oh, come to Dungannon," and we went to Dungannon. Like,
lad, see if you were fucking Mid Ulster blood, you would have known like playing in Dungannon was like fucking playing the whiskey in LA. Like it was where bands went to either A, cut their teeth, or B, get finished. And it was like, no, you can't make it in Dungannon, boys. You can't make it anywhere.
We played loads of places. We played like down Patrick and played in Ballymoney. Like, we used to play in Ballymoney all the time because there was a thrash scene in Ballymoney in like 2005.
What's Ballymoney like? What is it, a town like?
Yeah, it's a shithole. It's an awful.
Like being a whole bunch of boys from Newry and stuff, and even later for like we used to bring Mass Extinction up like from Dublin. Like, man, that's the fucking beauty of the peace process and everything that happened, was that like the generation before us in the 90s wouldn't have been able to go and play in Dungannon, or Irish thrash bands, you know, from Dublin come up and playing in Downpatrick or Ballymoney, especially. Like, but like that's the great thing is now people are willing to fucking leave all that shit at the front door, you know.
Well, that stuff's obviously, it's a wee bit before my time, but not like so much that I don't have a clue about it. But what I will say is, I remember whenever I was 16, I was dating a girl from the opposite school, right? And I remember people telling me that it was like a fucking big deal. Like it was in some way, oh, this just wouldn't have happened 10 years ago, you know? And I remember thinking, like, this is ridiculous, you know? We're just going to the cinema, you know? Innocent, you know?
Yeah, thank God that all that shit is behind. There was actually no hint of it when I went up there, Jude, for Elder Druid's launch in January. No hint at all.
Brilliant too. I bet you that was some gig.
Amazing, yeah. And as I said, we were getting in various taxis, and there wasn't a problem with our accents or nothing. We didn't come across anything. But
that's what you want, man. You wanted to have an inclusive thing, and like I'm sure, like fucking Richie, you would agree with me. Like this is that there's a lot of towns out there that you just don't get bands coming to that you used to, like, you know.
Correct. Spot on.
15 years ago, you would have bands like Destruction and Sepultura playing in Derry and in Cork, you know, or playing in Galway and stuff. And like weirdly now, it's like bands will do Belfast and Dublin. Occasionally, they'll do like Limerick these days, but like that whole network died, you know. And I talked to H from Acid Rain about it when he was on here and said that when they did an Irish tour, there was like 6 gigs. It was like whenever you saw those old Thin Lizzy posters, they'd be playing in like Drogheda or Dundalk or Navan. And
same with Rory Gallagher and Mama's Boys. If you look at their actual Irish tours, it was like, okay, so we're doing
great point.
Limavady, we're doing Armagh, we're doing Draperstown, we're doing Cookstown, we're doing Coal Island, we're doing Dublin, Cork, Limerick. You know, it just went on. And
but all those gigs, a lot of those gigs were in community halls. They weren't.
Yeah, well, they actually used to have show band halls in Ireland, didn't they? Like, and that was a big thing. Like hall acoustic buildings built with the let's deliberately have show bands in here playing top 40, you know. So like it's a different world we're in now.
It is, yeah. And I mean, when you see that, I thought Belfast is brilliant because most bars in Belfast we went to, there was live music on there, you know. There was a guy with acoustic guitar. There could have been 2 lads on guitars, but it was fucking great, man. It added to the whole vibe of the city.
This as well, man. That see the whole time as starting off with as a band, like metal can be extremely elitist, like, you know, and like see punks just welcome you with open arms, like, and I'm sure you guys same as us, like all those early punk gigs where you cut your teeth and like got actual fans, people who liked the band because they were fast or whatever.
There's, you know, like a rule in punk, like in sort of more don't want to say it, but sort of more Northern Irish thrash, there's a rule that at least one of your band members has played in the Dangerfields. so like the whole punk thing, cutting your teeth, like I totally get it. And it was the same thing with us. Like,
is the Dangerfields a punk venue, is it, or what? What's Dangerfields?
The Dangerfields was a punk band.
All right, okay.
They were actually class. I loved them. Like their music was great. They had a drummer that used to sing.
They're back together, man. I went to go and see them just before lockdown happened at this wee venue in Belfast, and they were awesome, like, you know.
Yeah, they're always off and on, like, but you had a few members, like I think Luke and maybe
Luke and Kevy, both.
Kevy
and like they were the Dangerfields were the first band to take us, you know, out of Ireland. We went and did like 5 or 6 gigs in Scotland with them and stuff, and they were the proper road dogs, like, you know, going to 150 gigs a year, just all DIY.
And the other thing about them was they used to just go and do these extremely long tours of Europe where they would just hit like every toilet venue within a million miles. So like they would probably do 75 dates in like a month, you know. It was ridiculous.
Jesus. Yeah.
But yeah, no, like, and I tell you what, man, I would love to fucking, they're, like, I'm in contact with Andy all the time, but I'd love to try and get, you know, like someone like you guys and them and us, because then you're getting, like, different sort of style. Like, it's all fast music, right? But, like, you get, like, you can draw on people who like death metal or progressive music or punks or, you know, people who like 80s music.
I don't know if you'll want to talk about this, Joe, so feel free to edit this out if this doesn't suit, but, like, didn't you do a cover of Maniac? I really liked that.
Yeah, we did. And, like, the idea originally was that we were going to do an EP where Dangerfields did, like, one of our tunes and we did one of their tunes, and it was like
Dangerfields.
It was like 2005 or something like that.
I think did Andy from Crawling work with?
There was some like
Dangerfields cover.
They didn't do it, and we ended up using it as a B-side for like a demo that we brought out as a single. You know.
Yeah.
But like obviously no bad blood. Like, you know, Andy's a lovely dude, and as I said, would love to, you know, do some gigs with them.
I'm actually doing some guitar solos on their new album. They've got a new thing in the pipeline, and I've been
like 1955. Like, you know, they're really brilliant.
Yeah,
they're kind of like Zeke. If you ever liked Zeke, you know, they're like that kind of thing. You know, like Zeke or Anti-Scene. You know, that very sort of late 80s, early 90s, very American punk, where it's sort of like the Ramones meets fucking Motorhead or something. You know,
are they a bit like the Transplants? Remember them? No.
Yeah, they're a bit like the Transplants. Yeah, totally. Or if you like the Casualties or something, you know. But the drummer Andy would sing and drum, and like he has no toms, so there's no drum rolls. It's just like snare rolls, and then just fucking head over to the mic, and he's like singing like this, you know.
Yeah.
Class, really good show, really, really good.
Wasn't there a trash band called That War that had a drummer singer as well?
Well, Exciter was the big one that had a drummer singer, I think.
Exciter, and there was like, you know, there's a few Zoetrope and a few other bands. Like, I guess it's one of those things that like no one has ever really, you know, like we played with Exciter and stuff whenever we played in Japan there last year or the year before, and like that was a dream come true because we were big fans of them growing up. But it's visually weird, you know, seeing the drummer, unless it's like a fucking Bill Collins type things and the drums are at the front of the stage. Like, it's weird. Like, you're sort of sitting being all like, who should I be looking at here?
Yeah,
absolutely.
About a couple of months ago when we were doing the forums with Richie, and like we brought up, it was the whole discussion was about replacement singers and stuff. And whenever me and Richie were talking about, like, you know, Dio's era of Sabbath, like Evan and Danielle were just like, what? Like, who wants to hear non-Aussie Sabbath? And you're like, everyone.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, the beauty with that is people are making it like you have to choose a side. No, that band's finished now, so it's a case of just enjoy it all. You've got loads of eras, loads of albums, you know. You can put on Tony Martin, Glenn Hughes. What's wrong with liking it all, you know?
Yeah, even Ian Gillan. I was listening to the Ian Gillan album as well.
Like Born Again. Yeah, fucking class. And actually, there's another Irish relation because he had Bernie Tormey play guitar in his band.
That's right, yeah.
Bernie Tormey, who passed away there last year, was a fucking brilliant player too.
Yeah.
You know?
That was a great lineup, actually. They had Gillan.
Sorry, Richie, go on ahead.
I just on about Gillan there, that album Future Shock. He'd McCoy on bass, he'd Bernie Torm on guitar. I'm missing one other member.
I think that was the album, actually, Future Shock, where did Bernie Tormey not leave and then Janet Gears come in?
No, Bernie was definitely on that album.
Was he?
Yeah, I have it at hand, literally.
That's the one where he does what's the Stevie Wonder cover, Living for the City or something, isn't it?
I have it on single. I have that on single on 45 as well.
It was ape shit on the fucking whammy bar, and it's not even a Floyd Rose. It's just like a standard Strat whammy bar, and he's giving it grief, boy. I don't know how he kept it.
Jude, like, how do you feel about that? Like, as in fucking the you know, being in the annals of Irish lead guitar players, like, because the country has come out with some insane players, like, you know, like, and like loads and loads of different styles, and you can certainly hear, like, you know, some of the kind of like Gary Moore, or I would even say sort of a bit of Eric Bell in your sort of sound. But like, are you a Gallagher fan, or what do you listen to? Look?
Yeah, you know who I love? Pat McManus.
Man, he's unbelievable.
And not just his Mama's Boys. I love his solo stuff, and I love the Celtic stuff as well. There was a lot of guitar players that have kind of slipped under the radar that were great in Ireland too. So one of them that was fantastic was a guy called Willie Byrne. I don't know if you remember him.
No, who was he in, or what was his?
Willie Byrne was in the Willie Byrne band, but his thing was, they were like Van Halen, but he would just jump out, like he would wear, you know, the fucking scarf fucking thing, the 80s fucking bandana around the neck. And he would jump out with the super strat, and he'd start doing all the whammy bar antics and all. You know, he was like a full-on shred guitar player with the tapping and all the techniques.
Jesus.
But brilliant player. And then sort of towards later on in his career, he ended up being playing more like Mediterranean Sundance, maybe acoustic Aldi Meola stuff. And he was fantastic at that, like the Latin acoustic stuff. It was terrifying to see.
Fuck.
And then there was also, big one was Jim Armstrong. Most people remember Jim Armstrong, the blues man.
Right.
Jim Armstrong had a band called Light, L-I-G-H-T. And they had one big hit called Harlan the Wolf. And it was, he was doing all these effects, making the sounds of the seagulls on the guitar and all. And it's a lovely song. If you're into like blues, see even like modern blues, if you like bands like what Bill Steer did with Firebird and stuff, it's really good for that. But Jim Armstrong used to be in a band with Van Morrison. And then Van Morrison ended up getting basically picked by an A&R agent to, here, you can do the career and we're going to record an album with you, but you're going to have to use our band, sort of thing.
So was he originally in the Belfast lineup with them, was he then? Or?
Yeah.
Right.
And then there was also another big one that I think people should go and check out is Henry McCullough. But he'd be sort of most famous for his work with Paul McCartney and Wings, and he played with Joe Cocker at Woodstock.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's his solo stuff that you wanna check out. Like, see, as an island, Ireland has the guitar caliber is every bit as good. Considering it's a smaller island with less people in it, it's every bit as good as the quality that was coming out of England or America at the time. You know. So to answer your question, Joe, yeah, it's a fucking absolutely awesome pressure to have.
So, like the One Point Blues Festival is like a mile across the water over there, and like Rob McCullough and like Pat McManus and etc. have played it many times. So it is class that there's that sort of lineage. But it's a funny thing that, like, see, like Richie, you might know this. Like, see, being an older fella, if you have spent time in England and stuff like that, you'll get a lot of people who think that Thin Lizzy are from America or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I think of Irish guitar, I think of like U2 or
Horse Lips.
Far away from, fucking Top Priority by Rory Gallagher or We Want Yours, so we can get, like, Do
you know, Joe, one of my favorite fucking guitar players of all time is Alex Skolnick. Like, I love the guy, everything he does, and there's like this movement of guys that you've probably seen on the internet with thrash that you're only allowed to like old Exodus albums and Old Testament albums. I love all the stuff they're putting out now too. But I will say this, like, there was one night Alex Skolnick was doing a live Instagram feed, and I always watch it. He does it every Friday night. And I was watching it this one night, and someone said to him, "What do you think of Rory Gallagher?" And he says, "Oh, I've heard of him, but I've never checked him out." And then as soon as he said that, I was a bit like, "Oh, come on, man." Like, there was just that wee now added to one of my biggest heroes,
Fuck it, yeah. Jesus Christ. But again, if someone said Gary Moore, of course he'd know him then.
It's funny though, because I can even remember Kirk Hammett saying years ago, whenever I was like fucking first learning to play metal and stuff, and I was buying all the guitar magazines and trying to learn everything, I can remember reading an interview with Kirk Hammett where he said he thought it was kind of gross that Gary Moore never broke America. Like, in Ireland, he was at a time nearly a household name. Even in England, he was a big name in rock. Like, fucking Ozzy got him whenever Randy Rhoads just died, and it was like, can you fill in for a few gigs kind of thing. Everyone knew Gary Moore, but he never broke America. So he never became the kind of household name that, you know, Richie Blackmore or Jimmy Page or Eddie Van Halen say became, you know.
Like Rory Gallagher is really popular in Europe and in blues circles in America.
Absolutely.
People who have heard of Leslie fucking West and stuff would have heard of Rory Gallagher or ZZ Top kind of being. But because Moore is a wee bit more removed and his music's a bit more 80s, you know, like he did tour out there with like Def Leppard and Rush and stuff like that. But I don't know.
He always kind of moved with the time, though. Like what you're saying about Gary Moore's music being a bit more 80s. I think Gary Moore always moved with the times. So like he was in Skid Row, which was kind of like a Cream type thing to begin with.
Yeah.
Like a trio. And then he was, you know, trying out some stuff with Thin Lizzy whenever rock was kind of getting a bit harder edged, and you started getting more, you know, harder edged Scorpions and Van Halen kind of hard rock bands in the early eras, I suppose. And then I think Gary Moore, he tried a bit of the jazz fusion thing around the time that, like, we were talking about Mahavishnu Orchestra and Return to Forever, right? Mm-hmm. Around the time, late 70s, that those were getting big. You know, he done the Coliseum 2 stuff. But then he kind of goes through this really interesting period in his discography where sort of around the Corridors of Power and Victims of the Future era that I really, really like. And especially the Victims album. And I'm sure you two boys are fucking sick of hearing about this album, so please, I'm sorry. But that album in particular is every bit as heavy to my ears sonically in terms of guitar tone and riff craft as, say, Kill 'Em All. Wow. And I don't say that lightly, you know. Like, there's a song, Murder in the Skies, on Victims of the Future, and I think it was maybe the first time an Irish guitar player, quote unquote, did a thrash riff, you know, on record to my ears. I know I'm nerding out a wee bit here, but we're talking about Gary Moore, so you're going to have to humor me. But like even Sodom covered Murder in the Skies. Do you know it's that much of a thrash song?
Yeah, fucking hell. That's what I was trying to think. I was there going, what fucking band covered that? Sodom.
It was Sodom.
Sodom did it, but it's one of my favourite Gary Moore tunes, and like the guitar tone on Victims of the Future in particular was like, we were always like such huge fans of Strats and metal, you know. And like one of my favorite guitar players ever is Dave Murray, right?
Yeah.
But like for his lead playing, and like I think that if Iron Maiden had one guitar player, maybe the guitar sound would have been better. But like that, like sort of Up the Power Slave sounded so muddy. Whereas like the first time you hear Victims of the Future and hear that kind of single coil heavy metal sound, it's the same as Raven, All for One, you know. There's like an ultimate amount of clarity in it. But it sounds great, like, and that's why we use the single coils on the Vigeurs these days for the rhythm.
Do you use single coils live?
Yeah, we use
Are they not super strats with humbuckers, the Vigeurs?
The single coil strats on the what do you call it? John's one is a humbucker, and the section is a single coil, and Damo's ones are just like a Jimi Hendrix style.
Single coils and Damos.
Yeah,
that's fucking awesome, man. And the last couple of years, I've been really enjoying P90s. And P90s are just like hot as fuck.
Like Ray Cooder used them in the bridge of his guitar. He would put a P90 in there and then have the two other single coils from the Strat, like, you know. But like totally unique sound, like, you know.
Yeah, that's wicked. Because, well, it does work good in the because it's like a lower output. It does work good in the neck position just for that like warm, creamy Dave Murray-esque fucking solo sound. But I've been really enjoying just a bridge P90, like a Les Paul Jr. type thing, like Leslie West, who just died there.
Yeah.
There's a young blues guy I really like called Jared James Nichols, and he's big into the bridge, just solo P90, just hot as fuck overwound. I actually got one made by a guy, Diachi Pecco. Funny enough, Kevy Canavan actually has got some pickups.
They're around the corner from us down here.
Yeah, you know him. He's a Newry lad. But he actually custom made me one. It's beautiful. I have to give him a shout out. Like, it was absolutely unbelievable. I went to him and was like, I want a P90 that has the tone and touch of the best blues sound, but I want it hot as fuck so it can cope with thrash metal.
I was going to say to you though, man, so like, I think the last time I saw you, you were playing some Les Paul type guitar, but you also had your Gary Holt type red stickery Superstrat. Are you like, what do you use now for, like, is the whole album playable on one guitar, or do you like different tunings, different guitars, or what's the crack with it?
So I recorded everything with a P90 Les Paul Jr. on
Right.
the rhythms. On the rhythms, I did at least one rhythm track, but I did record with some other humbucker guitars on certain parts. So like maybe the odd guitar solo or a second rhythm track, maybe.
So
But
what's the main guitar? What's the Les Paul type, or what are you playing then?
at the minute, I've got a new guitar that I'm really enjoying that I haven't used anywhere yet, just in the house, and it's a Les Paul Classic. It's a 2021. But the reason I love it, 2 seconds. Oh.
You may have to edit this 25-minute nerd session that we're having about guitars or something.
No, there's no hassle.
Yeah, fuck it. It's a different episode. So this is it here, right?
Lovely.
Just looks like a black Les Paul, glossy motherfucker, right? But
Right.
the thing I love about it is, see the tonal palette in here? It's really interesting because it basically works in such a way that I can set the neck pickup, I can split the coil so it sounds like a single coil, and then I can bring the volume back, I can bring the...
Be tight.
Okay. I think his phone overloaded with metal.
Heavy metal overload.
Right, what was I ranting about there before we stopped?
You were going on about the what was it? The
Is Les Paul and the pickup configuration.
pickup configuration, yes.
Right. So, just in case you missed it, I can basically pull this coil tab, bring it back, and have a single coil there. Like Joe's talking about that warm, creamy single coil sound that Domo's now using, right? And then instead of having to switch the thing and then go back and hit this and turn that, I can just pull this wee switch here, the bottom tone knob, and it's set as like a bypass. So that just flicks everything and goes straight back to full shred humbucker, back for your riff, you know?
And is it the 498 and 500 in it, man, or what's the pickups in it?
The pickups in it are Gibson burst buckers, just the standards, right? They're just completely stock. When I got it, I was like, I'll see what they're like, and I love how it plays, but if I don't like them, I'll change them. But I ended up loving them.
Domo, the piece of advice Domo gave me recently was on your Gibson, lower the pickup action, because he was saying that he finds that you end up getting a muffled or distorted sound the higher up they are, and you get a cleaner sound the lower they are.
I've hired the action on my Les Paul Juniors and increased the gauge of strings, so I'm using 11s that are drop tuned to D standard. And what I've found with that is, just see with the higher action, you get more sustain because there's a bit more push to the fret, and there's big, lovely jumbo frets in that bastard. So I go back and hit it and see the ring. It's like pure Nigel Tufnell. Just fucking, just hit it. Whoa! So,
I used to love playing 11s all the time whenever I used to play guitar, like before I was playing bass and stuff, and you do get a super crunchy tone. It's one of those things that, if you like, doesn't Eric Clapton use size 8s or something insane where you're just like, how
so many awesome players, man. Fucking tone gods like Tony Iommi uses fucking 7s. Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top uses 7s. You know,
yeah.
And Tony Iommi's drop tuning too. It's like, what the fuck? His strings would be literally, it'd be worse than rubber bands. It'd be like loose shoelaces.
And what do you use then, Jude, with Putrefy?
With Putrefy, I would actually use this guitar.
Ah, okay.
And it's just like, it's the same tuning as Acid Age. So I do everything in D standard. So it's basically the same setup.
Okay, and that guitar is bought new, yeah?
Yeah, I've actually only had it maybe about 2 months. So, but it's going to be my main live guitar because on the album, on Semper Pessimus, I used all Les Paul Juniors.
Okay. And what array of pedals did you use?
I used Boss. I've used a Boss SD1 just to push the lead sound a bit.
Okay.
And I used my Dunlop VH1, which I use in everything. But Jake, funny enough, Jake uses mad rake of fucking bass play. You're a bass player, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Jake's fucking pedal board is getting so big now, right? that I actually have about a third of a stage, like to really manipulate my feet around. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah.
And have you heard of Moose pedals?
Moon what?
Moose pedals.
Moose pedals. Yeah, I've heard of Moose.
Is it Batlax, is it? Yeah, Andy from Willie Byrne now would be a great fan of his pedals, and who are the other? Oh, Slowmatics would use his stuff as well.
We rehearse in the same room as Slowmatics.
There you go, man. Fucking call in and have a look.
Yeah.
But I'm getting keen on the show at some stage in the next few weeks anyway, just to talk about Moose and what he's up to. But
brilliant.
But yeah, Jake and his fucking pedal board. Sure, Jack is the same down in Cork here and Crows as well. Fuck's sake, it's starting to look like a coffin that he's carrying around, man.
There's actually parts on Semper Pessimus that you would think are a keyboard, but they're actually not a keyboard. It's Jake doing it with his feet. You know, like some of the outros in some songs where it's like, even the very last track, the reprise. And the stoppiness and all. He actually done that with pedals. I haven't a clue what he's at, so I can't tell you. But like, you would think it was a synth or something.
Yeah. Fucking hell. Yeah, because you'd kind of look and see what instruments you were using on it, and it's just bass and vocals, guitar.
Well, we did play some other stuff on it too. Like, both me and Jake actually played the lyre on it.
Okay.
You know, the ancient Roman instrument that Nero played? We both had a go at that.
How did you get your hands on one of those?
Jake actually bought it for his girlfriend at a convenient time where we needed one and she needed a birthday present. So I think he bought it and then asked if we borrow it. But she loved it, like, to boot. See, to be fair, it's a class present. You know, it's a lovely piece of
class, man. So look, I'm going to leave you go, man. Absolutely blown away by your album, Semper.
Thank you so much.
Pessimus.
Semper Pessimus.
And it's Jude from Acid Age. Check out all your stuff. You're very good on social media. I like the way you're starting to do the playthroughs as well. People still watch these?
Jake just done one tonight. Like, by the time this is out, it'll be a week's news or whatever, but Jake's just done one on how to play 16th notes with one finger at high speed. So check out that.
Yeah. And to buy, is there any physical releases of the album, or what's that?
There is. You can go over to Bandcamp and get everything. Look, there's no there's discussions about vinyl at the minute, but we're very much still doing this ourselves, and there has to be a bit more demand there before we can really go ahead with it. But we absolutely do want to do it, but it's getting there.
Okay.
So if you want the vinyl, it would really help if someone lets us know on our socials, you know.
Yeah, and
the more complaints basically we get, the more convinced we get to do it.
Yeah, cool. And as you said, August the 21st, Acid Age, Belfast. Is it Voodoo or where is it?
It's in Voodoo. It's the official Semper Pessimus album launch. We're going to play it in its entirety. It's a very, very limited capacity event just because of the rules with COVID now.
Mm-hmm.
We have to make sure everyone's safe and in good hands, and you know, and I think Voodoo's a really good venue for it.
Yeah.
So it's August the 21st, and you can get tickets at We Got Tickets, and it's from the Distortion Project.
Brilliant. Shout out to James as well.
Absolutely.
Again, thanks a million, Jude. Joe, as always, thanks for joining me on the show, man. I appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button if you like the Metal Cell, and as I said, check out Acid Age. They're fucking brilliant. So big shout out to Jake, Jude and Aaron. Support your local metal scene.
Thank you very much, boss. Take care.
Cheers.